This is the Infinite Receiving Podcast, helping conscious leaders like you tap into a wealth of abundance across all areas of your life and business. My name is Susie Ashworth. I am a single mum of 3 and author of the Sunday Times best-selling book, Infinite Receiving: Crack the Code to Conscious Wealth Creation and Finally Manifest Your Dream Life. On this show, I'll be sharing with you how you can upgrade your identity and your reality to create the life that you have been dreaming of, because you are ready to be an infinite receiver. Oh, hello, you gorgeous human being. It is Susie Ashworth here, and you are listening to the Infinite Receiving Podcast. And I have got a juicy one for you today. I am really looking forward to introducing you to my new friend and fellow Hay House author. Dr. Lalitaa is in the house.
I absolutely love that intro. I'm just like, I want to start dancing to that.
Like, where did that come from? I love that. You just brought that out in me. So thank you.
I thought that's how you start all of them. I was like, oh, I didn't get the memo for this.
This was special just for you. And we were just talking before we came on air, and you shared that you've got your brand new book coming out next week.
Yes, next week. I don't think it's hit me yet, but next week here we have High Functioning Anxiety. It will be out, and it's like my baby that's going out into the world, and it will do its thing to whoever needs to see what they need to see from it.
Yeah. I was really interested the moment actually I saw the title, because my first instinct was, oh, well, that's not for me. I don't have high functioning anxiety. And then I went through your Instagram and I listened to you describing some of the traits and symptoms of it. And I was like, oh.
I get that a lot.
So do you want to, first of all, explain what is it?
Yeah, I think when people hear high functioning anxiety, they're like, yeah, that's not me. And that's why on the back of the book, I've split it out, because on the one side, we show up as being organized. We've got everything together. We're the ones who's social, the life of the party. And on the other side, there's the other part of us who is constantly worrying, constantly thinking about what people are going to be thinking about me, catastrophizing, ruminating, very much in our own heads. But on the front, no one sees that. And also we procrastinate, we have insomnia, we are really hard on ourselves in the background. But again, no one would see that, because on the outside, we show up as like, I've got everything together. So people look at you thinking, oh, you've got a really easy life, not knowing that actually behind the scenes, there's so much more going on. And the way that I sort of metaphorically say is a bit like the swan. So the swan is like so graceful. It looks like it's just gliding down the sort of like the stream, and underneath it's sort of like paddling away. Yeah. And that's how I would describe high functioning anxiety: is we show up, we look like we've got it together, but actually there's a real big part of us that we don't really show to the world.
What would you say that the key difference is between somebody who has anxiety and somebody who has high functioning anxiety?
The anxiety pushes you to be successful or a high achiever. So it's like this place of fear of disappointing others, fear of coming across like a failure. So you push yourself. So if you feel like, oh, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, but you know you've got some work to get done, or you're going to be worried about what other people in the office are going to say, or what's this person, it's like that's the thing that drives you. So your fear drives you because you don't want to, ultimately you don't want rejection. You don't want people to say that you're not good enough. You don't want to be abandoned by people. So you keep pushing yourself, but you're often left exhausted. You're often left feeling quite lonely as well, because people don't really see the true you, because you're too busy. I've got it together. I'm hyper independent. I've got it. Like, I've got everything. I don't need any help from anyone. But actually, no, you do want help, but you just don't know how to ask for that help.
Nah. Anybody who's like, yeah, I get that. This is, in my book, I talk about this is the pillar of support. And often when I think about myself, or when I describe myself, I would say that I'm a recovering control freak. And I think that when I have been at the height of needing to control all of the things, I absolutely identify with all of the things that
Yeah.
you have just that you've just outlined from that high functioning perspective. How did you find out that you experienced high functioning anxiety?
I accidentally found out that I have high functioning anxiety because I was always growing up, I'm one of five and I'm the second oldest. I come from a ethnic minority, and in my family are second generation, so I'm second generation here. So already my parents have their functionality is very survival mode. So then for me, it's always almost like we're going to give you the things that we didn't get.
Yes.
So we were pushed into education. We were pushed into like, we want you to have a good life, not knowing that actually our worth, our value came from the grades that we were getting or what we were coming home with on our report. So that became, oh, look, I'm enough now. Look, I've got validation now from my parents. And it's not blaming parents in any way, but it's understanding, where did you learn this link? So you become very disconnected from your own emotions. And I was very disconnected from, how do I actually feel, versus becoming this people pleaser, becoming this person who's like, oh, this is what I need to do to get that gold star or to do this. So even at school, I was very compliant, very rule based, listening out to what the teacher wanted, and just kept showing up in that way, not realizing there was another way. And that way was to embody yourself. But because I was so disconnected, I didn't even know what feelings were or how I would feel into feelings. So this anxiety would be there, but it would be like a dread, a fear of, I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want people to think badly of me. And if you were pulled up, I remember I was about to get my first detention, and I couldn't deal with the emotion that was coming up. Like, I was like, oh my God, I've done it wrong. What are people going to think? Da, da, da. And I wasn't conscious of what I was thinking or what I was feeling at the time. But when I reflect back now, I understand it. But back then, that version of me, I was just feeling something and I just needed it to go away.
Yeah.
And to make it go away is you just jump into doing more, doing more, doing more. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, this is the good girl archetype. And as you were talking, I was just thinking, I know so many people who resonate with that. And what's interesting is when you step into entrepreneurship, there is almost this, you have to turn away from doing what everybody else wants you to do in order to stand out. And at the same time, you're used to operating in this place of high performance and high pressure, and the stakes are higher because you have to let go of the good girl identity whilst still having all of those like things that are programmed into our DNA around performance and getting it right and not being seen to get it wrong. Was there a straw that broke the camel's back for you?
Yeah, when the rules stopped working and the expectations of what life was meant to be. So I was meant to go to university. I was meant to then go on and do my master's. And then there was a problem that happened in my research paper on my thesis in my when I was studying my doctorate. So everything up until that point was like, yep, this is great. I'm following all the rules. I'm doing everything I should be doing. And something just didn't work out in the way that it should have. And that was it. It broke me. But in that place, it also made me, because, and what I mean by that is it allowed me to see what was going on inside. Like I had the right support, I had the right networks, and I was trying to understand, like, why do I feel this way? And you feel like you're a failure. You feel like I've just done this massive thing wrong and I'm not doing it the right way. But that's also where you start looking at, actually, where did I learn all of this? And it wasn't easy. I can sit back now and think, yeah, that was just something that happened. But actually, it was a big, big moment for me, because the way that I always had control and I was always managing situations, this was something not in my control, and it was someone else that made this error, and that was it. It was like, and I really did feel like, this is the end. How am I now going to finish? What's going to happen? What's this? And you start catastrophizing. But why is it that I'm showing up in this way? Why is my brain running in all these directions? And when I was in my own therapy, that's where I started to understand, why does my brain do this? Why is it that I'm running in all these different spaces? And what's like living beneath that? And that's how powerful it was for me, because it just gave me more insights into how my brain worked, but also helping me to regulate some of these big emotions. So the emotion of disappointing others, but also learning who Lalita was, who is Lalita, and what are the things that I actually like, rather than just going along with it because that's going to be the best and that's what everyone else wants. It's like, no, what does Lalita want? And learning these tools was so empowering, because it allowed me to really trust into my own intuition, because that's the thing that I disconnected from a young age. I was so focused on the outside world, focusing on what other people wanted. I didn't realize what I actually wanted, although it was always there, always like, not really sure about this, but I just wasn't tuning in.
How old were you when you had the breakdown?
I think it was about 20. Was it about 21 maybe? Yeah, I think it was about 21.
In a way, you're very lucky that it happened at that age, because there are, I'm sure, people in your community that have gone through, their middle ages, they're 40, they're 50, they're 60, and they're like, what the hell has happened to my life? You said that, I'm interested actually in the process. So you had this breakdown or breakthrough, if we want to say it in personal development terms. What was your process for discovering who Lalita was? So you mentioned that you went to a therapist. Were you already seeing a therapist at this point?
Yeah. So as part of like the course, I had to see I had to see a therapist, and I was like, I've got nothing to talk about. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, I'm just gonna go in there and mark off like I've done all the hours. But little did I know that when I went in and I started talking about different things, I'm like, oh my goodness, not everyone else is like this. I thought everyone was like this. And you just start becoming more aware. And I remember there was this one therapy session we had, and she was like, right, here's all your we were using like play, and she was like, okay, just explain to me where all your family are. So I put it all there, and she was like, where are you? And I was like, oh, I'll pick this piece up and put this piece in. But that really shocked me, because I was like, I forgot about me. I put everyone else down, and just that one question, I was like, oh, I forgot about me. And that felt like it was the narrative of my life, is I was always putting everyone else first. But it wasn't, I would not think about my own needs, because I didn't know how to, because I was the caregiver, I was the empath, I was the one that made sure everyone else was okay. Like, that's the narrative, that's the archetype that I had taken on board growing up, and also having younger siblings. It felt like that was the archetype, and being one of the older ones, you weren't really seen, you just got on with it. So that feeling of not being seen was, okay, I'll just carry on, and that became a theme in my life.
So when you say I needed to discover who Lalita was, who is she? Who are you, Dr. Lalitaa?
I feel like that's still an onion that's like peeling away constantly. I honestly feel like every situation, every day, can we put words to who we are, or are we just always constantly evolving into a space? Am I like a butterfly that's just fluttering around and doing my thing and just going to different spaces? But I know what the hardship is. I know where, like, being in that cocoon, I know what it feels like to be that caterpillar. And now I'm just like this butterfly doing my thing and just enjoying life, and having the gratitude of being able to go and sit on the ground and be okay doing that. But then also knowing I've got my wings and I can go and fly and support others to be like, come on, you can get through this. When they're in their cocoon and they're like, oh, what's going to happen now? And where am I going with this? It's just letting them know that, believe in yourself, trust yourself. And that's what my book's all about, is like the root of it, of high functioning anxiety, is you're not feeling enough. And when you're not feeling enough, it's because we're disconnected from our intuition, we're disconnected from self-trust. And that's what we want to go back into, is come back to trusting yourself. Because sometimes as a people pleaser, you're like, I'll just let someone else make a choice, because if we make the wrong choice, we have to sit with guilt. And it's not about other people, it's about you not being able to sit with the emotion, because it's a big emotion that we haven't learned to regulate.
What does self-trust feel like for you?
Now, I think it danced around a lot with anxiety. My self-trust did. Like I would feel it like literally dancing in my stomach. You'd have the excitement and be like, yep, this is the route. And then you'd have that dread, that anxiety, that feeling, and it would be like dancing. But I think as I've made more and more decisions, my self-trust has got a lot stronger. And I feel it, you just have this, it's like a fire in your belly, and you just know that this is the right choice. And you might be having discussions with someone, and they might be saying, no, 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 this is what we should do, or this is the way it needs to be. But that fire in your belly is just screaming out, no, 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 this is it. This is what's going on here. And it's learning to listen to it. And then not just listening, but it's then how do I action that now? What do I do with this? Now that I'm feeling what's going on here, or I'm understanding this, what am I going to do with this? So it's having that pause to really reflect on what's going on rather than being that reactive self.
I really love that. And I suppose I want to invite everybody that is listening to ask yourself that same question, like, what does self-trust feel like for you? For you, it's that fire in the belly. I think for me, it's a quiet feeling. It's peaceful. Like I am present with what is right now, and everything feels calm. And so, my question for those of you who are listening is what does self-trust feel like for you? And where does it live? Because one of the exercises that I love doing is that when you're lacking in trust, find where the trust lives in the body, and then turn the dial up so that you can feel it more right throughout you. Are you using practices and tools on a daily basis to help you stay grounded? And if so, what's one of your favorite ones?
It would have to be my yoga, like starting my day and just doing like a sun salutation or something, and just getting into my body. Because I know what I'm like. I'll get distracted with like the smallest things. If I go downstairs and get a coffee, I'm distracted by this, and it's like, oh, I need to do this. But actually, I need to clear my mind first. So I always come back into my heart space. I'll always start off with a sankalpa or an intention, and then I'll just position myself into Tadasana. So just standing up, but feeling grounded, like feeling my soles of my feet on the floor, feeling my hands like really pulling down to gravity. Like I really feel into the posture. And I think that really helps me to start my day, because I've just got that pause. I'm really in my body now. I've got that clarity as I go through the different other postures, and I just feel like I'm ready for the day. Whereas if I know that I missed that little bit, I know I can be a little bit scattered, or I'm just like, oh, this and this and this. Whereas it just gives me that pause to really just sit in and just say good morning to my body and really feel connected.
I think that it's interesting as well, because I'm guessing that if you are somebody that relates to being highly anxious, you're in your head all of the time. And so that practice drops you down into the body. I'd love to hear your take on the relationship, though, between the thoughts, the nervous system, and being kind of up in the brain versus being in the body. What's going on there for people when they're in the midst of? What do you call it? Is high function anxiety just a constant state, pretty much? You know, is it a negative lifestyle, or do you get bouts of it?
I think there's positives to high functioning anxiety, and that's when we learn to harness the anxiety part, so that it's not the anxiety part in the driver's seat.
Sure.
For me, it's like, actually, no, it should be you in the driver's seat, and the anxiety is still going to be there. But maybe you want to put it in the boot, maybe you want to put it like somewhere where it's not making the decisions. But when it's sitting in your driver's seat and it's making the decisions, that's where the problem starts, because you're doing things without the intentions, without really sitting and tuning in with what is going on. It's like, I need to just do something. I don't like this feeling, so I'm just going to quickly give this person what they want. And it's like, oh, I can breathe now. But it's not about the other person. It's about you and the relationship that you have with yourself. And often I get clients, and I also know that I've been in this spaces where you intellectualize it, you get it, you understand it, you know you're a people pleaser, you know that you like to be in control, you know you're all these things, you know you're a perfectionist, and you own it. And even people that have high functioning anxiety, they own it. They're like, yeah, I'm high functioning. I'm like, you sound really proud when you say that. And they're like, yeah, because it's like there's a success connected to it. But behind the scenes of high functioning is, are we really tuning in and connected to our body? Or are we in a state also of like disconnection from the body? So we are very much internalized, like, I need to do this, I need to do this. And we haven't really connected into our emotional self. So I know when I started yoga, for me, that was me connecting with breath, because for a long time I would shallow breathe. And I didn't realize like the breath connection. And even when I started running, I remember I was like, I can't breathe. And it's because my body was so used to just the shallow breathing rather than the deep breathing. And ever since I started practicing yoga and started doing more running, I realized just how much capacity my body can hold with oxygen, and just how that impacts on my decision making, my choices, clarity, and also that pause. Because when you're very much like, I just need to get rid of the feeling, we feel dysregulated and we want to do something because we're in that state of fight or flight. And it's like, I need to just get rid of this. But we also need to understand and tune into the body and make sense of what is actually going on, to then find a way to respond rather than be reactive in that space. And that respond is in, like, it can be a few seconds of pause, but sometimes we don't know how to sit in that uncomfortable feeling because we've never known how to.
Yeah. When I talk about that, it's like, can my intention, it's not be quicker, but for the sake of this, can my intention be quicker than my ego? The ego wants to release the pain, keep me safe, do the thing. And my intention is chill, like be zen, be cool, like let's see what's going on. It's interesting that you said that you can use high functioning anxiety as a as a tool. It can be a positive thing, because my experience of our interactions is you are on the case. Like, it's already done. Like, I'll have a thought, I'll share it with you, and 5 minutes later I've got all of the information. It's done. So I am curious about how are you in life today now? And I heard you when you said that you can put it in the boot, but I'm curious because do you relate to that term of being high functioning? What's your preference if you don't? Like, I'm curious.
Yeah. No, for a long time, I think my anxiety was sitting in my driver's seat, but now my anxiety sits in the back seat. So it's there. I know it's there. But it's a lot quieter. And it does its own thing. So I'm not like, say, for example, if I had like a presentation or something and I'll be like, oh my God, and I can feel that dread. I don't feel the dread anymore. And it's like, it's a beautiful thing not to have that, because I just feel, I think it's more, the more comfortable you feel in yourself, the less likely you are to seek that external validation, because you know you are enough as you are. And the more that you show up in that way, the more you're like hyper vigilant, looking out for everyone else, because you're just like, oh, it's fine. Like, it's okay. I don't mind doing this. I'm not bothered by what people think. Whereas before that would be like, no. And that's what anxiety is driven by. Anxiety is like watching and is waiting for hypervigilant to come out and be like, oh my God, look, that person's just looked at you in that way. Or that's just it. And it's learning to sit with the anxiety and be like, no, hang on. That person may have looked at you, but this could be 1,000 of other things that could be going on for that person. But I do feel like it's a process. But now the way that I would use my high functioning is in a very productive way. So I know that there are going to be days where I'll procrastinate. There's going to be days that come up where I don't really feel like I want to do something, but it's like, right, I know that these are the things I need to get done. Let's get them done. And then I can do whatever I need to do. Otherwise, I know I'll procrastinate and then I'll be like, oh my God, I need to get these done. And under stress, I'll do them. So now I try and reverse it. So the more you understand how you work, the more you're like, okay, let's get this done. Otherwise, I know I'm not going to get it done.
That is me. Why do I leave everything to the last minute? It's because I'm high functioning. Okay, fine. See, I've got work to do.
But I also think we sometimes leave it to the last minute because we like trust ourselves. Yes. We trust that we will get it done.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we were also talking before we came online. That was a little bit of my process with the book, my book. I'm curious. I would have thought that writing this, and this is not your first book, actually. So this is, you've done this. Is this your third?
No, this is my first.
This is your first book. Oh, I thought, did you not contribute? Have you contributed to Wake
I
Up?
know I contributed to a book. I did
Okay.
contribute. I think it was like a wake up book. Like
Yes.
this was years and years ago.
Okay.
But I don't think that was published. But I think it was. Yeah. So I contributed to one book, and then
Okay.
this is like my first official
Your
alone
first.
book
Okay. I would
with
have.
me, myself, and my anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. So I would have thought that, well, this would be a great test to see where you are in the journey, because I know with writing mine, oh my goodness, did the gremlins come out to play? Every time I was writing how I had overcome something or the process that I would use,
Yeah.
there the thing would be like, there would be my, whilst I'm writing about being in your greatness, there would my insecurity be like, this is not good enough. So how
Yeah.
was the process of actually writing the book for you?
I think this has been a long journey. So I remember doing, so when I actually had the breakdown, I remember starting just to write and log some of my thoughts. So I remember journaling and it was just like on a Word document on my laptop. And as years just kept going on, I just kept evolving that. And for me, that became like, I always had the intention of, I'm going to do something with that. Like that's going to become a
Okay.
book one day, but I never knew that it was going to come under or fall under high functioning. So it's been a big part of my journey going through that. And then I got the deal with the publishing house, and I was like, oh, this is what it needs to be. Like it needs to be. And then we thought about the name, and we just kept going round and round, and just playing with like what could it's like, but that's all it is. It's just high functioning anxiety. Like that is literally what it is. You can't call it something different because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then I remember sitting writing the book, and the only thing that I would say that kept coming up for me, it wasn't about the rest of the world. It was about my family. I was like, oh my God, they're going to think, why she wrote this, or why she wrote this, or why she wrote this. Like, that doesn't make sense. That's not who she is, because they've seen so many different versions of you.
Yeah.
So that insecurity kept coming up. So every time I would write something, I'd be like, yeah, let's delete that because they're going to think this, or yeah. And I had to really sit with myself and also have my own therapy within that, to try and understand, what is that about? What's this resistance of, or this fear that keeps coming up of what's going to happen? And it's just another shadow part that comes out of you, where you think, oh, and it's that self-trust of like, no, this is your journey. This is what your experience has been. And it's for you to own that and to feel confident. And and they're not going to reject you. They're not going to leave you. They're not going to abandon you, because you can have conversations with them, grown-up conversations, where you can hold yourself and not shut yourself down and think, oh no, but I can't, because you're not that little girl anymore.
Yeah.
So that was really powerful.
Do you think that this is more of a problem now than it has been in the past?
Yeah. Yes. Because everyone wants to perform. Everyone is looking to look at me. I've got this. I've got this following. I've got this, my brand. I've got this. Like, no one wants to be honest about being sensitive. Like, sensitivity is seen as a weakness. If someone is saying, oh, that's really upset me, or that's really hurt me, it's like, oh, you're taking up space. You're creating a scene. You're making a bigger deal than it needs to be. And then you're perceived as being like the one who's like the interrupter, or the one who isn't good enough, or the one that's a troublemaker. So you don't want that negative association. So you just keep showing up as got it together. I'm okay. I'm hardworking. I'm all of these things, because that's all we know how to, and it keeps us safe. Ultimately, that's all we're looking for as human beings, is we just want to be safe. And to be safe means we keep showing up. But the problem with that is the two things that keep coming up in that I keep seeing with people is the disconnection, and also the loneliness. And the loneliness side is huge. Like, I'm seeing it more and more than I've ever seen before, where people are coming in, they're talking to me, and they're like, I'm there for everyone else. I'm so hyper independent.
Yeah.
I'm so focused on giving, but who sees me? No one sees me. And that really, it breaks me. Like, it breaks my heart just hearing that, because I'm like, there is another way, but people don't know the other way, because they don't know how to embrace that other side, which is their sensitive side. It's their intuition. It's like, it's where all their magic lies, but they just don't know how to tap into it because they've always been told, don't go into that space, don't go into that space.
As soon as I hear you use those words, I'm like, people aren't seeing you because you're not seeing you. You're not allowing yourself to be seen.
Yeah.
So when you hear that, what is the process that you guide people through to help them to start acknowledging themselves in real time?
So in my book, I break down, I split the book into two sections. So it's a 5-step guide, but the first and second step is all about how you unlearn. So it is about going back into your past. And this is where like the inner child work comes in, because we can't move forwards until we understand the past and start connecting all the dots to understand why is it that I present in the way that I do now.
Yeah.
So if you are someone who is a people pleaser, maybe you learned that you had to look after everyone else's needs.
Yeah.
Maybe you had a parent or a caregiver who wasn't emotionally available. Maybe you had caregivers who were very busy and they didn't really see you. So your narrative became, people are too busy for me, or people aren't available for me. So you learn to shut yourself down. So you need to first go back and understand, where did you learn to show up in this way? And then you move forwards into the learning. And the learning is about you now developing that version of you where you're understanding your emotions, you're understanding your thoughts, your values, you're really connecting in and tuning into the roots of who you are. So you're no longer pretending to be an orange tree. It's like, no, I am actually an apple tree, and I embrace who I am, and really connecting into my roots and nurturing myself and giving myself what I need. So yeah, there's a beautiful metaphor there that I've just shared.
How often do you ask yourself, what do I want?
Oh, probably every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And at first it felt very self-indulgent. At first it felt like, who am I to be asking myself what is it that I need? Like, there's other people out there that need this, and all these other people, they don't have that. So who are you to ask yourself? And you have to listen and talk to that little voice there that's screaming out, that it's always resisting. And it's like, right, what's this layer that's coming up? Why am I speaking to myself in this way? What is this? What is this? Essentially, it's a protective mechanism. At some point we would have developed that's trying to protect us. And it's like, right, let me sit with this. Whereas once upon a time, it'd be like, oh my God, I've got, like, I need to just go. But you have like the grounding, you have the clarity, and that just allows you then to start to become more aware. But after the awareness, you need the understanding. You need the understanding of, why does this show up in the way that it does?
What's your vision? Like, if you can imagine that everybody that needs this book gets it into their hands, how do you imagine the world changing?
I feel that more people will feel enough as they are. They won't need to feel that they need to constantly put everyone else first. They will learn to have the tools that they need to self-care, to look after themselves, like basic tools that we need to look after ourselves, they will have without feeling guilty, shame, embarrassment, all these emotions, to stop themselves from looking after themselves. It's just, how do they feel that inner peace and be able to thrive with that, rather than being this sort of scattered energy and just go, 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 because that's not serving them.
Yeah. How do you think that it changes the world to have people who are really looking after themselves?
Because more of us will be holding up the light, so other people, it gives permission for all the other people to then start realizing, oh, that's okay, I can do that because it's acceptable to do that. But the more of us that keep showing up pretending everything's fine, the more of us that feel like, oh, I can't really I can't really bring this other part of me in, because this person seems to be perfect. If I bring this, like, what are they going to think? So I think it's about giving permission, but it's also connection. It's allowing ourselves to have authentic, deep, meaningful, beautiful connections that we're all yearning for. Like, there's so many of us that are yearning for these connections, but we need to get out of our own way to be able to communicate and let people know that this is what we're wanting, and not thinking they should know, or no, if they can't see that, then I'm not going to tell them. It's like, no, these are the tools that we need to be able to let people know that this is how we want to be loved and cared for.
I think the other part of this, just really tapping into that loneliness part, is we feel isolated because we are not showing ourselves, but also that busyness, the need to keep on going
Yeah.
means that you cannot stop to smell the roses. And I was
Until your body stops you. Like that's where you hit that brick wall and your body's like, I can't, I've got nothing else to give. And that's where everything just like, oh my, and I've been there. I know what that feels like, where you're literally like, what do I do? Because your whole entire strategy of life, the rules that you live by, they are no longer working. And you've hit this brick wall and you just like, you feel for the first time because you can't just keep running away from yourself. And that is a really difficult place because you're burnt out, you're isolated, you're lonely, you feel disconnected, you might feel resentment. There's all these different emotions that can come up all at once. And that's why it's so important to put in preventative strategies to try and help yourself.
It's funny because I think that when I have thought about burnout in the past, I have associated it more with people who are doing stuff that they think that they have to do. So they are in work that they don't love, but they don't feel that they have a way out. So they just need to go all in, and that's when the body stops. It's interesting to think about it from the perspective of actually just being driven by the fear that causes you to keep on going when you know that a pause is required.
Yeah. And I see that a lot in like the workspace as well, where being an entrepreneur, being like within a corporate, and you feel like, no, but I want to get that promotion, or no, but I've got all of these things that I need. I got all these emails that I need to get back to. And you're constantly just chasing your tail because you never get to that point where you give permission. Because when you do sit down, you have productivity guilt. Like, I can't just be sitting here doing nothing. I've got this to do. I've got this to do. You don't give yourself a break. Like but it's all your internal dialogue, and it's the relationship. Like everything around us is a reflection of what's going on within us. And if we are this busy, like what is that? What's actually going on underneath? And it's as soon as we start to understand that, we can address it and make sense of it.
The biggest thing I'm taking from this conversation is that we have to be willing to create our own rule book. It's new rules. Like this is anybody who is looking for a permission slip. Dr. Lalitaa is giving you a permission slip right here, right now, to start rewriting the rules. And I get that actually for a lot of people that probably feels quite scary.
Yeah, because it's a blank piece of paper and it's like, what do I put on there? And if you've never chosen, I remember even someone was asking like, what do you want to eat? And I was like, I don't mind. And they're like, well, choose, what do you want? I was like, I don't mind, like anything, because you don't even know what you like and what you don't like, because you're just so used to being like, I just go along with it. So you're just, that's how it can show up day to day, to that extent where you don't even know what you like and what you don't like, but you'll just do it for this. I can see you just like...
The reason that I'm doing that is because it's reminding me of a guy that I dated. And he was he was a very successful entrepreneur. He'd got himself down to, he worked like, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours a day. He played a lot of sport. He played a lot of pickleball. And unless he was unless he was doing like 4 hours worth of sport a day, he was not happy, which I think is also a sign that something is not quite right, because that is an excessive amount of exercise that you have to do. But I remember once asking him, do you take your... I made him a cup of tea. I made him a cup of tea and I said, tea bag in or tea bag out? And he froze. It was like rabbit in a headlight.
What's the right answer? That's literally what can be going on underneath.
So, but that's exactly it. He didn't know whether he could say that he took his tea bag in or out. Honestly, I knew then that actually we were not destined to be with each other. I thought, I can't bear it. Like, if you can't answer that question, we're done. But now I have a different perspective, Not that I think that I should have been with him, but I have a different perspective because I'm like, oh wow, this was his high functioning anxiety. I mean, I don't know whether we can count that as high functioning, because that for me, that wasn't functioning because he couldn't. But there, you've just said it. You know that actually that is a
Yeah, it's that
symptom.
productivity though, isn't it? Like that's, I think there's this thing like always have to be productive, always have to be, and if you're not, you don't forgive yourself. Like you have to meet these certain standards in your head. And if you don't meet these certain standards, you beat yourself up, or it's again dysregulated. So food can come into that, because you can become very controlled in what you're doing and whatnot. So there's so many ways it can show up for different people. And when you start to understand like what's going on day to day, it's like, that's why like I rush around, and that's why sometimes I find random bruises because I've bumped into things, because I'm just like all over the place. Like it's just shows up in so many different ways.
Yeah. Oh, I'm thinking a lot about this guy now, and
I
I'm
know. Should we send him a copy of the book?
I think he might have blocked me. But anyway,
I love how your brain took you there. You'll be thinking of other situations now, like, oh yeah, maybe that, or maybe that.
yeah. Well, a different level of compassion. And I laugh, but yeah, compassion for others and
Yeah.
compassion for self. And I think that just to go back to the loneliness piece, when you are so busy rushing around trying to do your best at every single thing that you do, it's impossible to connect with people because you can't give them the time because you're not giving them the time. And
Yeah.
one of the most powerful things that I have been able to do over the last even couple of weeks is just spend a little bit of time with my next door neighbours who are quite elderly. And it has made such a difference to, be willing, be
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
just be like, I can pause. Like, I've got 20 minutes to have a conversation with you. How are you?
Yeah.
And
And just stopping, isn't it? And really asking someone, like, how are you? Rather than, oh my God, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to, like, people pick up on that energy and people feel like, oh, this person's not available, or they're so busy, or
yeah,
like, yeah, I can't have this conversation. But when we're open,
yeah,
but we need to give ourselves that permission, like we need to be okay with silence. There's so many lessons in that, and just
yeah.
what does silence mean to you? And what does slowing down mean as well?
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like nobody's got any time for me but nobody's got any time for you because you don't have any time for people because you're so busy doing your thing.
Yeah.
And people don't understand me, but people don't understand you because you're not showing them who you are. It's this, yeah. So we want this to be the pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
And there's a really beautiful opportunity here with the book. I'm curious outside of
I can see your eyes like, oh no, what is she gonna ask me? And what's gonna go on? What's happening? Getting ready. My anxiety's getting ready too.
what's next? That is the question, actually. Well, like, what
Mm.
is next? Obviously we want the book to be a massive
Yeah.
success, but what's in the plan?
So really, really exciting. I have started my second book, which is
Already, see, this
going
is
to
what
be
I mean. This is what I mean. She's not even got the first one out yet, and there she is. She started her second one. She's already on it. She's on the case.
I'm on it. I'm on it. If you need something done, come to me. I'll get it done. Um, it's really interesting because I'm like, oh, so other people don't do this. Like, oh, it just happens. That's why when you learn to really understand your high functioning, you can thrive because
Yeah,
you plan things in a certain way. So yeah, there's that, but it's also a really beautiful topic that's very connected to high functioning anxiety.
yeah,
And I'm really, really excited. Like even just starting the process of writing this book, like so much has come out and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting and that's really interesting. And also my therapist is amazing, so just having that space
yeah.
to unravel and making sense of all these other layers that come up, it just allows me to keep growing and me to really sit in this deeper space that I've never been in, which I love. I love learning. I love being stimulated in that way. But with this book, I'm on a mission to try and get as many people as I can to understand what the two sides are of high functioning anxiety, but also knowing that there is another path. That is my biggest mission in life, is letting people know that there is another way of them being and not doing, and rather than just keep going down that path of I need to do this, I need to do this. It's like, no, we can be, because we are human beings. And how do we learn to be? So I know for me, it's that connection back to breath and coming back with that pause. For you, it's going to your neighbors at the minute and just having that pause and really being present. I think there's a really beautiful thing with just being present. I say just, it's not just, it's being present.
It's the biggest gift. It's always one of my New Year's resolutions to be more present, because I often feel distracted, and I think that the world is set up to distract us. Our phones are set up to distract us, and they become very irritating habits. Are you allowed to tell us what the name of the new book is, or what the subject is? No.
I'll tell you after.
Okay.
Not yet.
I'm very curious. I'm going to find out.
Well, I might make you wait, actually. I might make you wait and just like, you just keep pondering, like, what is she going to do? What is she going to do? What is it? What is it?
I do think it's interesting that you've already started. I don't think, to be fair, I have the ideas for my next two books. However, I feel like I've got some life to be living before I can write those books with the level of potency that I desire to write them with. So it will definitely be, life will tell me when it's ready for me to sit down for those books. But I do.
And I think that's something really beautiful there as well, Susie, when you're just talking, because look how each of us are very, very different in how we work. You have ideas that you nurture. You sit with your seeds and you really sit and understand, like, what are these seeds, and let me nurture them. I'm in a different space where my seeds are there and I'm like, right, okay, what is it that you guys want? Okay, yeah, let's grow. So each and every one of us are really different, but there's no right or wrong. And I think it's about understanding how is it that you work, and not looking at, oh, but that person's seeds grow like that, or that person's seeds grow. It's like, no, but this is how yours grows. So how are you going to continue nurturing and not then get caught up in this comparison of, what about this person, or what about this person? Because it takes you away from your own heart. It takes you away from what you know that you want to do and how you want to live and how you want to show up, because you're not the orange tree, you're the apple tree.
Know yourself, or know thyself, is the phrase that keeps coming up. And my feeling is that you know yourself deeply and intimately, which is the number one tool, actually, when it comes to creating the life, the impact, the business, the relationships. Know who you are, and then show up from that place, ideally in the healthiest way possible. That is healthy and sustainable. That is what we are looking for. I wonder if there is I was going to say a parting thought, but I have some questions for you, actually, that I ask all of my guests. Some quick fire ones.
Go for it.
And then you can give me your parting thought. So, in celebration of the launch of Infinite Receiving, which is now not really a launch because it's been around for a while, but these are my questions. And the first one is, what does Infinite Receiving mean to you?
Oh, I think it's like just holding your hands out and just trusting yourself and trusting the universe around you and just feeling very connected. That's how I envision it. And like a big golden circle, and you're just like, oh, I feel this, I've got this. Like, that's what comes to mind.
Yummy. How good are you at receiving infinitely?
Ooh. If there was a scale of like 0 to 10, I'd say I'm like a 6, because I feel like I'm still learning to be like, this is okay for me to take this, rather than keep giving out. It's like, okay, how do I take, and how do I, I'm on that journey.
Yeah, beautiful. Where in your life right now, or who in your life right now could you allow to support you just a little bit more?
There's like 3 different people that came into my head, and I was like, oh, which of them 3 am I going to move to the top? But I would say it's one of my friends who I know. I've been like, oh, I'm on this journey of like the book and this, but I also know that this one particular friend, I know I could ask for more support. So yeah, that's given me food for thought there.
Yeah, you've got some homework, so I know you love homework.
It's like a therapy session. I love it.
What is one thing that you are consciously manifesting right now?
I want my book to go out to as many people that it needs to get to. That's my manifestation.
Yeah. What's your greatest attribute?
The way my brain works, it always will come up with there's always a way, no matter where you are. It's like, okay, if you want this, we can do this and this and this and this. And look, we'll get there. We will get there. That's my superpower.
I love that. And final question is, where in your life right now, or again, who in your life right now could you allow to love you just a little bit more?
My mother.
It's funny how many people say parents. Yeah.
Oh, really? I was going to say, like, I wonder, first someone else came into my head, but then I was like, no, I think it's mom. Yeah. But it's interesting. I wonder if we go back and unlearn, everything starts with our attachment figures, don't they?
Yeah. And, part of the learning and the growing up is separating yourself and you allowing yourself to be that individuated expression. And then I think that as we get older, there gets to be, in some cases, a return. And maybe yours there's a little bit of returning that gets to happen in the love department. Anyway, Definitely. This has been absolutely incredible. If you had one parting thought that you wanted to leave with my listeners, what would that be?
Don't dim your light for others. Shine for you. Like, that's what I would say. That's like my go-to. Just don't dim yourself down. Come on. You got this. Love.
Where can everybody, 1, buy the book, and 2, find out more about your brilliant work?
So if you go onto Amazon, or if you go onto Google and type in high functioning anxiety book, my book will come up. Just type in the words. And if you want to see any more like insights of the book, you can check that out on my Instagram. That's at Dr. Lalitaa. I have a very unusual spelling, but you'll find me somewhere. If you type in high functioning anxiety, I'll come up.
Yay.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. And I just need to give a shout out for the typography, because the fonts that you have used on your front cover is sexy. I'm
so glad you said that.
It's really sexy.
I'm really, really appreciative of that. Thank you.
I know what it takes to create your book cover. So if you are not watching this on Spotify or YouTube, go and have a look on one of those 2 places, or just type in Google, you'll see it, but it's very, very pretty. So I hope that you have loved this episode as much as I have. If you know anybody that displays any of these types of symptoms when it comes to high functioning anxiety, please do me a favor. Please share this episode with them. And if this has touched you, then drop me a DM. Let me know what is most present. Dr. Lalita's book is going to be out, well, at time of recording, it is next week. So what is the actual date? The 28th
of May.
The 28th of May. So go and do everyone a favor and get yourself a copy and share with a friend. And please know that in the meantime, faith plus action equals miracles. Thank you for listening to Infinite Receiving with me, Susie Ashworth. I'd love to share with you my Infinite Receiving activation audio. Go to susieashworth.com/activate infinite receiving.